Okay. Spoiler alert. This one.
Hello.
Oh, hi. I'm Rosie.
Hi. I'm Catherine. Welcome to our podcast.
26 to life, because after 26 years, we have officially been friends for longer than a life sentence. So here we are, just doing anything that we can to make ends meet and have fun in the process and spend time together.
This is not helping ends meet.
We're not making any money from this. BTW, spoiler alert.
We're not making any money from anything. Look at us. We can podcast, we can paint, we can knit, we can talk, and yet we're still broke.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish that you just got money naturally for doing things that you enjoy doing. Like, why can't we just get money because you're being productive? You know, why? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm the busiest poor person in the world.
Yeah. That sucks. Anyway, this case, it contains everything awful. So be aware. If you could think of something awful, it's in it. Like the worst.
Fun.
The worst kind. Catherine said, "Oh, I'll just have a relax where you tell a story." No, you're not going to be relaxed. This is awful. This is going to hurt your soul. I hope you're ready. So,
I'm not actually. I'm just going to sit here and knit. I'm going to be really quiet today.
You're not going to be quiet.
I feel like I am. I feel like I'm tired today.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay.
Challenge accepted. Elsie Uri and Clive Ralph. I think that's how you pronounce her name. U-R-R-Y. Uri? They got married in 1968. Elsie was 16 and pregnant. And I mean, back in those days, 16 wasn't that young to be getting married, you know? I feel like my nan and granddad got married when they were 21 and 19. So, and it was,
I know, but they were meant to be.
They were meant to be. But they'd only been together for like 6 weeks when they decided to get married. 6 weeks they were pregnant. Another 6 weeks and they were pregnant. Wow.
Wait, hold on. Is this the story of your nan and granddad?
No.
Wait, what? Is this the story of nan and granddad?
Is what the story?
6 weeks and they were...
Oh, that was nan and granddad. That was nan and granddad.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Elsie and Clive, I don't know their story about when they got together. But anyway, in 1969, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy that they named Paul. And then a year later to a little girl that they named Dawn. Clive was a lorry driver, so he was away for long periods at a time. And so in 1972, when Elsie fell pregnant with their third child, they realised that they could probably do with some help. So when an old friend of Clive's was looking for a place to stay, they offered him a room for, I think they said that he was paying £6 a week, which, whew.
Wow.
And, but he also helped watch the kids when Clive was away and even cooked meals every now and again as well. He would play with the kids, bouncing them on his knees for hours on end and just being a normal uncle to them. So kind of like me to Leo, but don't liken me to this man at all. I'm sorry I did that. I shouldn't. So who is this man?
Wow.
This man is David McGreavy. He was born in 1951. Have you heard of David McGreavy?
No. Like what? Colin McGreavy.
McGreavy with a G. It's like McGravy but with an E in there.
Thank you for that.
He was born in 1951 in Southport. Do you know where Southport is?
Is it in the south of the country?
No, it's not.
No, not a clue then. I reckon it was at one point a port.
Oh, wow. That was funny you should say that. I wonder why. It's technically in Lancashire, but I think it's like... Okay,
I take umbrage with you using one place to describe another place, because now I need to know where Lancashire is.
Lancashire is...
Where Postman Pat's from.
Northwest. I don't know where Postman Pat's from.
Postman, Lancashire. I'm sure he's in... Okay, go on.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't think I ever watched Postman Pat when I was a kid.
What did you watch when you were a kid?
Balamory.
What's the story I feel like that was younger than us. What's the story in Balamory, when you like to know? What's the story in Balamory, where would you like to go? This is a cute orange fleece.
It was from a charity shop, but it's M&S.
Knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, of course.
You love a good charity shop.
I really do. So Lancashire is in the northwest. It's by the shore. Well, I mean, Southport is by the shore. It's kind of like around Liverpool kind of area. I think it is Southport. Let's look at it on a map real quick.
I didn't realise Liverpool was by the shore.
What?
I think we need to do a road trip of the UK.
So Southport is just north of Liverpool. It's in between Liverpool and Blackpool, both along the coast. So Blackpool's like up here. You're not looking. And then there's like the river that comes in, and then
What
underneath.
river?
I don't know. There's a river that comes in, and then there's Southport and this little bit that sticks out, and then the river comes in here, and then Liverpool is underneath there. So they're on like these 3 different lumps of England on the left.
We're just going to go with we trust you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm actually so tired I'm not going to knit. I'm just going to sit here and listen to you because I don't think my brain can quite comprehend 12 things.
That's fair enough. Don't worry about it. Okay, so he was born in Southport. He was the second of 6 children, and they described him as an average child. They moved around a lot. His dad was like a sergeant in the military, and so they were moving from place to place. They spent time in Liverpool. They spent time in, I think it was Cardiff, maybe. They even went to Germany and lived there. But he especially loved Liverpool. And it was David's dream to also serve in the military, and so he dropped out of school at 15 and joined the Navy. His dad said that he didn't think that David was cut out for that kind of work, but each to their own. He was described as young and overly arrogant, which meant that he got in trouble quite regularly.
Ew!
Yeah. I mean, you could just imagine a 15-year-old that,
He's in the Navy.
Thinks he knows.
I'm in the Navy.
Yeah, thinks that he knows everything, and just annoying teenage boy. He drank quite a lot, and so once he found a book of one of the officers, and in the book he had written his name, and he immediately assumed that it meant something bad and that he was going to be demoted or moved to a different team or something like that, and he got mad. He was drunk because he drank a lot, and threw the book into the bin and set fire to the bin. And then it was only until the book had been destroyed that he called and said, "Oh my God, there's a fire, somebody help." And then they put it out and basically charged him. At first he said that he was a witness to the crime, and then they didn't believe him, so he said, "Okay, it was me, but it was an accident because I just dropped my cigarette in there and that's what set it alight." But he wasn't charged with arson, he was just charged with negligence, and he was court-martialed and sentenced to 90 days detention. He sued...
For setting a bin on fire?
Yeah, but in the military...
Yeah, they care, don't they? Unless it's about, sexism or rape, then they don't care.
Wow, controversial. Controversial. We're not getting into that. That's not part of the story. So he returned to shore and he met a woman called Mary. They wrote letters every week for 3 months. They apparently wrote letters twice a week, every week. And his letters just got longer and longer, and he was super in love with her. And so when they were together, finally, after 3 months, he asked her to marry him, and she said yes. In August of 1971, he was officially dismissed from the Navy and moved to live with his parents. He found other jobs. He was kind of in factories as a chef, but he was often fired, and this was usually due to his drinking. Because he couldn't get a job and he didn't really have much else going for him, he started planning a big wedding for him and Mary. He wanted a big white wedding in a church. He wanted the whole shebang, even though he didn't have any money and he didn't have any prospects. That was what he wanted. That's what he was living for at the moment.
Do you know that I have known people who've done things like take out loans for things like a wedding or a holiday?
Yeah.
Wild. If you can't afford it, don't go.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are other things I would take a loan out for before I got a loan for a holiday.
To me,
or a
you
wedding.
take out a loan for something that's like permanent.
Yeah. Or maybe like my
An
dog is
emergency.
sick and needs like a crazy expensive surgery and I couldn't afford it without a loan.
Do you,
Like then I
do you
would
not have
maybe.
insurance?
Oh yeah, of course I do.
Oh, I was
Of
going to
course I
say.
don't. But I mean, if the insurance didn't cover it or something like that, or maybe there was like, I don't know, something happened to the house and I couldn't afford to fix it and I needed desperately money. I don't know, literally any kind of emergency or a
A
big life
wedding
thing.
and a holiday, not a reason to take out a loan.
Those are nice to haves.
Those are
Yeah,
the luxuries.
not.
Those are the things when you, those are the things that when you can afford, great. When you can't,
It's not a big deal. Just don't worry about it. Don't go on holiday for a few years. Save up. I don't know. Anyway, but he was super obsessed with Mary. He absolutely loved her. Kept on getting like really intense by the sounds of it. And so in the new year, I think it was actually New Year's Eve, Mary called off the wedding and said, "No, actually, I don't want to marry you because you're a weirdo." I don't know if she said that, but basically she called off the wedding. So he was naturally heartbroken. Oh, poor David McGreavy. Greavy. His name's not McGreavy, I'm
wait,
sorry.
wait.
What?
Was he the 16-year-old? No.
No, that's Elsie. That was
That's
a
the
16-year-old.
couple with the
He,
child. He's then looking after like wonderful uncle, kind of like you are a
yeah,
Tia, but then don't equate because you made a bad comparison. Go.
yeah. Yes. So at this point, he's living back with his parents. So at 22 years old, he's not working, he's not paying any money to his parents in the house, so they too kick him out. And that's how we ended up at Clive and Elsie's. In September 1972, Elsie gave birth to another daughter, Samantha. So now we have 4-year-old Paul, 2-year-old Dawn, and baby Samantha. Soon
And a
after,
problematic man living in the house.
at the time he wasn't problematic. You know, he drank sometimes, but he helped out. Clive was away a lot of the time, so it was handy to have an extra pair of hands around the house. You know, when you've got 3 kids under 5, I
No,
mean, 2 under
definitely
2,
not.
like that's, yeah, it's a lot. You know, like somebody holding the baby while you clean up after the kids, you know, that kind of thing. He
Yeah.
was helpful, and everyone said that he was perfectly harmless. He was a drunk, and he did often get a bit of a temper when he drunk, but they all just said that he wasn't. They just stayed out of his way. He was easy to manage. It wasn't a big deal. Elsie soon went back to work at a bar called the Punch Bowl. I like that name for a bar. No, Punch Bowl, like a punch.
No.
You're thinking punch as in like the fight.
Yeah, to me it just sounds like a Friday night brawl, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's true. Clive continued driving lorries and David got a job in a factory, but between them the kids were taken care of. When Elsie worked in the evenings, and so the kids were pretty much put to bed and David just kind of was in the house while they were sleeping. Elsie obviously had
The
them.
easiest form of babysitting that ever there was.
Exactly. Elsie had them during the day when David was at work, and Clive kind of went in between depending on what his shifts were like for the lorries. But on Friday, 13th of April in 1973, like I said, the kids are 4, 2, and now Samantha is 10 months old. David had been at the pub with some friends. He'd drunk between 5 and 7 pints. I would be drunk after 7 pints, but, you know, I guess some men drink 7 pints of beer and lager, whatever they drink. And
That's a wild thing to be able to drink that amount and be like, fine.
I mean, he might not have been fine, but he was still walking and talking and
That's my
aware.
definition of fine.
Fair enough. Clive wasn't doing his lorry driving, so he picked him up and dropped him off at home, and then he went back out to pick up Elsie from work. So when he picked up Elsie from work, he'd often go a little bit earlier for last orders, stay for a drink himself, and then help her pack up before both coming home together.
Oh, that's cute.
I know, isn't it adorable? But in the early hours of that morning, they arrive home to find their house surrounded by police, and they weren't able to get in. They were told that they needed to go to the police station, and Elsie, who thought that something had happened to her parents, she thought that they were there because her parents had, I don't know, had been in an accident or something had happened or something like that. So she was insisting, she was like, my kids are inside, I need to go get my kids, and then I'll come to the police station. All she was thinking, she didn't consider anything else. But the police said no, they refused her access and drove them both to the station. And when the police determined where Elsie and Clive had been all night, they told them the devastating news that all 3 of their children had been murdered.
Fuck.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's the gravy man, isn't it? What a prick. Why did he do it?
It's the gravy man. Earlier that evening, the neighbours had called the police after hearing shouting coming from their house and watching the lights go on and off. The police had arrived at home at around 1:20 a.m. and they thought this is probably just a domestic call out. They didn't expect anything to have gone wrong. They were thinking, this young couple just having a domestic, no big deal. When they went and knocked on the door, they couldn't find anyone at the property, and they really didn't understand why they'd been called because it didn't look like there was anybody there. So they walked around the house to find to knock on the back door and kind of were looking around the area, and that's when they found a scene that made even the most experienced police officers sick to their stomach. All 3 children were found dead and impaled on a wrought iron fence in the neighbour's garden.
What?
Yeah. During the investigation, they found that the baby, Samantha, had died from a skull fracture. She had also been smothered. 2-year-old Dawn had had her throat slit, and 4-year-old Paul had been strangled to death using curtain wire. Their bodies had been further mutilated using a pickaxe and then left impaled in public view.
Did the neighbours call and say we can see this, or were they just calling saying no, we heard something?
Well, this was at midnight, so they called hearing shouting and yelling and lots of disturbances, but nobody had seen that anything bad had happened. It was probably darkness. I mean, I don't know about in the 1970s, but I can't imagine all of the streets were really brightly lit.
Lit, yeah.
Exactly. And in somebody's back garden as well, they wouldn't have those light movement sensors lights on.
Oh my god, do you remember when we had fireworks in your back garden and we put out the lights?
No.
Whose birthday's Kira's birthday around November the 5th, and we had fireworks in the back garden, and there was a Catherine wheel on the thing that came off.
Oh yeah.
And then the ones that go up and then they're like showers.
Yeah.
We had that, and it went onto the lamppost in the alleyway, and the lamp went out. Do you not remember this? This was at your house.
Yeah, no, I don't remember.
Anyway.
McGreavy was arrested by police at 3:50 a.m. He was walking on a street near the house, and when he was first arrested, McGreavy basically denied it, and he said, "What's this all about? What
me?
Who? Me? Never." But then eventually he did admit to it, and he said, "It was all too bloody gruesome. It was me, but it was not me. How could I have done it?" But then he basically said it was because the baby wouldn't stop crying. He was obviously found guilty. He pleaded guilty, and they sentenced him to life and then to 3 life sentences with a minimum of 20 years each. And when they were sentencing him, they considered whether this was obviously premeditated or whether this was whether this was premeditated or not.
Yeah.
And because each child was killed in a different way, it suggested that he had stopped and he thought about what he was going to do next. He had used the pickaxe to mutilate them further, and that was a case of him stopping, going down to the basement to find the pickaxe, and then coming upstairs and deciding what he was going to do. And the further act of actually leaving them on the fence in public view, it wasn't like he was... That was a very...
A conscious decision.
A conscious decision to put it out there in public view where people could see. He wasn't trying to hide what he was doing. Go on, what was your question?
I can't remember it now, it's gone.
Yeah.
That's why I have to say it in the moment, otherwise it goes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's alright. Oh, wait, hold on. Is the definition of premeditation, like, does there have to be a specific amount of time prior to the act for it to be premeditation?
Well, so remember the case with Karen Buckley when she was at the club and her psycho killer picked her up outside of the club and they drove. So they drove away and he murdered her. So I questioned whether or not that was premeditated because he and his friends, he'd only driven to the club because a taxi hadn't arrived. And so was it premeditated? Because it was just a coincidence that he'd actually driven to the club, and the only reason he was able to have Karen in his car was because he had driven.
But that's what I mean. Does that mean that it could be like literally you have like 5 minutes to think about your actions and that therefore is premeditation?
Yeah. Because I don't know. Because I imagine premeditation as
planning.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a shopping list.
But based on what you said,
know...
I don't think that's premeditation. I think premeditation is you have the opportunity to think through your actions, and therefore you cannot blame it on like an uncontrollable rage or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Or self-defense.
Yeah. And so naturally he was abused in prison because everyone found out what he did, and he was given protective custody. Elsie and Clive sadly divorced. They couldn't stay together after the trauma, and they were never allowed back inside their house after that day. Elsie never returned to her home. She later tried to commit suicide with an overdose of pills because she couldn't imagine life without her 3 children. But she is still alive to this day and struggling every single day with what happened. She never had another child after that fateful day. In 1994, so this was about 20 years after the murders, he was transferred to an open prison, but quickly moved back to a closed vulnerable prisoners unit when other prisoners learned about his crimes, because obviously they were attacking him and hated him. But in 2006, he was again transferred to an open prison where he could go out during the day. But a picture of him walking out and about meant that he was then transferred back to a secure prison. So in 2009, an anonymity order was issued during a parole hearing due to threats to his life. First of all, can you just say how proud you are of me for saying anonymity correctly the first time? Because I did not think I was going to be able to do that.
Anonymity. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Well done. Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome.
But this order was lifted in 2015 because the public needed to know if there was a dangerous man walking around the streets.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, why does he get anonymity?
But the audacity of applying for an anonymity order, when you chose to do that, you made those decisions to kill those 3 babies.
Has he said anything about why he did this?
He just said that it was because the baby was crying. They've not really named any reason other than that. And he was just in a fit of rage, and that when he was drinking, he wasn't always in full control of his actions, and that he often saw red and just lost his temper.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, really fucking ridiculous. But in 2019, so 6 years ago, he was released from prison.
Ew!
And so now he is walking the streets somewhere in England.
Let's blast his face everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yes, please. So the parole, I looked into the parole, like not his parole specifically, but the whole process of parole, because I didn't really fully understand how these things worked. And so basically they're just an independent group of people that decide. So there's paper hearings and oral hearings, and the paper hearings when they just get all of the paper evidence.
What, sorry?
Oral hearings. Why? What did I say?
Oral hearings.
What did I say?
Oral. Carry on.
So there are paper hearings when they get everything within note form. all of the papers, all of the notes and reports, and then they can make a decision from that whether or not the prisoner in question can be released or transferred to an open prison.
Why would he ever get paroled? I don't understand. He got 60 years. Minimum.
Yeah. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. And then there are the oral hearings where if they don't have enough evidence from the paper ones, they will basically defer it to an oral hearing and then do in interviews and the rest of it to decide.
So how many years did he serve?
I think like 23.
What? So he didn't even do his full 2/3?
Oh, no, that's a lie. That's a lie. If it was 1979, I was thinking this was 1970. Oh, let me do the math. Ah, no, so he did 46 years.
That's what it is then. He did 2/3. 2/3 of a violent crime.
Lame. But so one of the statements from the parole, they said, we can confirm that a panel of the parole board has directed the release of David McGreavy following an oral hearing. Parole board decisions are solely focused on whether a prisoner would represent a significant risk to the public after release. The panel will have carefully looked at a whole range of evidence, including details of the original evidence and any evidence of behaviour change. We do that with great care, and public safety is our number one priority. It also said that following 45 years in custody, McGreavy now takes full responsibility for what he did, and that he has developed self-control as well as a considerable understanding of the problems that he has had and what caused them. He has also shown himself to be compliant and cooperative with authority, which suggests that he will comply with licence conditions.
I don't care. That poor mother and father.
Yeah, that's what I read. I read that I didn't read as much about the father, but the mum, she has been very vocal in her whole ordeal for everything that she's been through, and how she feels about David McGreavy being released, and how although he has served 45 years, she is serving a life sentence, dealing with the pain. She was, I think, 21 when this happened.
Yeah,
like
her whole life. This man ruined her life.
Her whole life.
And the dad's life, and 3 children. Why? I don't understand why he would be allowed out. That's ridiculous. That's disgusting.
I don't understand either. It infuriates me. And I mean, I know this has been. We don't actually know. He could be anywhere. But I did leave. I mean, I know this has been a very short case because this is the information that's on it. It's so clear cut. He pleaded guilty. These were the facts. There wasn't really much more to it other than the fact that he was the biggest pit stain known to man. He is the scum of the earth, and there is nothing more to it than that. But something that I read from a criminologist in regards to this case, and something that I want to leave on, not because it is positive, not because it's hopeful and provides hope to the world, but because I've never thought about it like this before, and I thought it would be an interesting thing for us to ponder on and for other people to ponder on as well. So from Professor David Wilson, he is a criminologist that spoke about this case, he says, quote, I'm often asked, how can people kill small children? And the thing that you've got to remember is that the most powerful person in any household is the child, but it's also the physically weakest. It is the most powerful person in the household because it is the child's timetable that dictates how that house will operate. The child wakes up, it has to be fed. The child has to have a nappy changed. And so it's the child's timetable that dominates how the adults have to behave. And some adults cannot cope with that responsibility. And it's when the adult who cannot cope with that responsibility is placed in a position of power over a physically weaker human being that sometimes disastrous results happen.
Who's that man that said that?
Professor David Wilson.
I think I don't understand the point he's trying to make.
I think he is trying to make a point about these adults that cannot cope with the responsibility of being controlled essentially by a child. It says more about that weak person and who that person
does.
Who that
abusing a child is the same as kicking a puppy. They can't fight back. They are physically smaller. They are physically weaker. There is absolutely no reason for you to put your hands on a child ever.
No.
There's no need for it.
No.
I don't really understand that. One, this man was not responsible for them. The baby was crying. Okay, the worst that can happen is a baby cries. Women have a physical reaction to a baby crying. Men don't. So yeah, it can be annoying, but they won't have that physical, painful reaction that women have because it's not biologically in them. And I just think you just have to put up with it for like an hour. Like, I don't know. I don't see it as like he did it because he couldn't cope. I think something's broken in you. I think there's more to it than that. I don't think it's like you can't cope.
I don't think that he was making excuses for it. I think it was trying to understand. I think it was him trying to understand why these things can often happen and why people get angry about kids not responding and kids crying and people getting frustrated. It's just a part of trying to understand the reasoning behind, not the reasoning because there is no reasoning, but trying to understand. It's that power imbalance that I've never considered it in that way before, that the child is the most powerful. You know, your whole life is dictated by what your child needs and at any one given time.
Is the point trying to be that basically, like, these are people who cannot cope with being out of control?
Yes, exactly.
Like, these are abusive people who can't deal with being out of control.
Yeah.
And if it was like they were in a relationship with just this other person, chances are they'd be violent to them. Like, they just find the weaker person in the home.
Yeah, but I mean, he started it with, I'm often asked, how can people kill small children? And it is just it's him trying to understand how people can kill small children, because it's not in our nature to understand how anyone could possibly hurt a small child, you know? And so it's just kind of I think he was just trying to make a point to understand how somebody could just commit such a heinous crime. And it's just understanding. I find the psychology behind these things so fascinating, because I couldn't fathom what it would take for a baby to be crying and me think, yeah, you know what, I'm going to kill all three of them. Like, that doesn't click in my head. It would never even cross my mind. So to understand,
it's like the shaken baby syndrome as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's slightly different. I think that is different to what he's saying, because I think the shaken baby. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, no, that was.
I love babies.
It was a super quick case. I'm sorry that was. I mean, there wasn't really much more to it than that. That was all there was. But I just thought it was such an important case, especially the fact that he's now released and he is walking this earth.
Yeah, what on earth? That should not be the case. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, me either. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Tic-tac-toe. At 26 to life_pod.
Can you tell we're tired?
Yeah, so tired. But
we're going to have to wake up a little bit.
Follow us everything.
Bye.
Love you, bye.
Bye.